Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to the new session where we'll discuss about API, CLI, UI, and programmatic way of doing the same task. So a lot of folks who jump onto the world of computers, they find it inherently very uh, difficult to understand that if there is a service, example, a database, or your operating system, or an application server, example, the website google.com is hosted somewhere. There are multiple channels through which you can connect, but just keep in mind the underlying logic remains the same throughout. And this concept is super important because the different ways of interaction you will be using at different times of your software development lifecycle. Example, while debugging, you might be using CLI, the UI, but when you are trying to do something through an API, you will be using the computer program to achieve the same functionality. Although there are multiple channels, you will have to selectively use which channel uh, to be leveraged for what kind of task. So my name is Kunal Gautam. I work as a principal architect in one of the Man companies. I have more than 16 years of experience, had my own startup known as Windex, and I have spoken at multiple Hadoop and big data slash AI ML conferences around the globe, starting from all the way from EMEA, US, India, Germany. So let's take a deep dive into the different mechanisms that we have at our disposal in order to get our work done. So first of all, just take a pause. Think about your operating system. Your operating system is also a service. What do I mean by a service? Something that's running 24 into 7. Example, google.com. It's a service because google.com, it's running 24 into 7. And in very simple terms, google.com uh, provides multiple ways to connect to it. All right. So the first thing is, if you look at your OS provides a UI to you, especially for the folks who are coming from Windows. You have the ability to go to your desktop, double click on a folder, go inside the subfolder, look at a file, double click on the file opens up, and you are able to see it. So the next question is, hey, UI is great, the user interface is great, but can I connect to my OS through a CLI also? What do I mean by a CLI? I open up a terminal. You go to your Windows, you open up your terminal, and there you start typing in command. So just keep in mind, the UI was one perception that is given to you by the OS. Similarly, CLI, the command line interface, are set of small programs which is given by the OS itself. Because OS knows that the people who have developed OS, they are the best one to figure out what kind of commands can be given so that people can leverage them to connect with my OS and get the data points, whatever is needed. Example, I can create a folder from the UI. I can use a command like mkdir in Linux to create a folder through the CLI. The third mechanism is through your programmatic language. So you have a program that can be Java, C, C++, Erlang, Go. You can do the same thing of creating the folders, creating the file through your program as well. Another important aspect, most of these services, not the OS, right? Example, google.com, netflix.com, amazon.com, your chatgpt.com, they are all hosted on an application server. And the application server gives you the endpoints. And on the endpoints, you can connect to it and get your work done. So just a quick one. I go to google.com on my browser. What I can do is I can just type in www.google.com. I click on this and you can see here, now leveraging my browser, I was able to connect to google.com. These were the get and post requests which was made. You can see it here at the down of your screen. And you got this web page. Just keep in mind, it downloaded an HTML page and it rendered so that because the browser is coded that way, that it renders the HTML and it is giving you all this dialog box, this search icon here, AI mode, a couple of tabs for Google search, blah, blah, blah. So just keep in mind, there is nothing so significant about it. It's just a UI in the backend. It's calling the google.com API and getting its code. So let's quickly look at Just a very high level idea what's an HTTP. So it's a protocol at the application layer. If you would have done the client server socket programming session that I had posted out, you would have realized that was all about TCP UDP. That is at the network layer. HTTP is at the application layer. So you are creating a contract at the application layer so that data can be exchanged. And what is the understanding here? A client will always make a request. The server will respond back, and that whole connectivity, the socket programming, will be used over TCP. TCP means that the handshake will happen, and the client server ensures that if a packet cannot be lost, it's always sent to the customer, sent to the server from the client. Again, this client and server, just keep in mind, these are hardwares. There is a server process running here, which is the socket program or the a Spring Boot application or a Python application, which is listening on a port. That's what a server process is running inside your server hardware. Similarly, this is your client. This can be your laptop. This can be a lambda function. This can be your PyCharm. Inside your PyCharm, you have written a code which is doing this task. HTTP has a couple of methods: get, post, put, delete, patch, head, options, trace, connect. And leveraging this, you can connect to the server and get different kind of responses. If I want to do the same thing through a CLI, I have something known as the curl command. So you have a curl, you give the URL, and it will download the HTML page for you. So let's quickly go and quickly have a look. So first of all, the UI is done. Because I use browser, I was able to connect to google.com. I use the curl command here now. So as you can see, the moment I typed in curl google.com, this is the HTML page it downloaded. And why do I say so? Just check at this type, dot type HTML. So it simply says that whenever you are asking google.com, it's just giving you an HTML page. The HTML page in terms of browser, it's getting rendered and it's being shown to you. In case of CLI, you just get this raw HTML page here. Can I call the API directly? Yes, you have a tool known as Postman. And from Postman, if you type in get google.com, look at it again, gets you back the same HTML. Right? So now UI is done. You were able to connect to it through the command line. This is the CLI. You are able to connect through an API interface, which is your Postman. And here is how you can do the same thing programmatically. So first of all, this is a Java code. Please convert that to Python for folks who are using Python. You start with a URL, which is pretty much the same here, right? CLI, it was the same URL. Postman, it was the same URL. Your UI, it was the same URL. And then you have your code. And we're using the same URL here. So you create a URL, you create a connection to it, you make a GET request, just like we have made a GET request here. And it connects to the server responds back, and whatever the server is responding, that is coming as an input stream. So first of all, the server responds saying that, hey, I am able to connect to you. It has sent me the status code as 200K. That's part of the HTTP protocol. That 200 means that the connection was established and server responded back successfully. So it simply says that if the response code is HTTPS OK, which is like 200, then go and read the data from your network socket, which is this part, and read line by line and display it on the screen. So it's reading the whole content that's coming from the server using the socket programming, like this specific program. It's HTTP internally is encapsulating the socket code. So that's the reason you don't see it. But just keep in mind, there is a socket code inside this particular class. When we are doing a like when we are instantiating this, sorry, this one, socket, this one, HTTP URL connection class. When you are instantiating internally, it also calls the socket, the TCP, UDP. It is making all those connect, getting the data, reading the byte stream which is coming on the network card, and displaying it on the screen. So if I execute this, you will see the same thing. Respond code as 200, and this is my HTML page. Just start correlating. This was programmatic connecting to google.com. This was from the browser connecting to google.com. This was the GET request, google.com through Postman, which is calling your API. And this is through your CLI. So with this, I hope you are able to really appreciate the fact that there are multiple mechanisms through which you can connect to a service. It can be an API program interface, example, a Postman. It can be a user interface, example, a browser, a RDBMS workbench, or the operating system UI. It can be a CLI because you just launch a terminal and from the terminal you are connecting to it. Or it can be your Python program. All doing the same thing, but leveraging different channels. So when you have to code and do it, it's through a program. When you are debugging, mostly it's through CLI. When you are also debugging or playing around with the service, it's also UI. And when you want to connect to a service which is like hosted on a different node or a machine altogether, then you expose the service as an API, and then you can use any tool which can connect to the API and get your work done. So with this, I hope you are really able to differentiate the different mechanisms available out there, how you can connect, when to use which tool, and how they all work in tandem. Just keep in mind, if a new service is rolled out, the service documentation will go ahead and say that what are the different mechanisms through which you should be able to connect to me. It will provide you sample for each of them. Then you only have to go to the documentation, look at the code, copy it, and then start leveraging it. Or the CLI, download that lib or download that CLI and start using it. Example, if I just go to Apache HDFS, this is the documentation of Apache Hadoop. Sorry. Yeah. And it will provide you all the documentation, what to do, how to connect, what is happening in the internals, blah blah blah. It will provide you all the understanding. So for each and every service out there, there is a similar documentation available which goes into the depth of that service, provides you all the mechanisms, which library to download in case you're using it programmatically, which CLI to download if you want to connect to it through CLI, can browser be used or not, if there is a UI, custom UI that the service has developed, it will also provide you the downloadable link for it. So this particular documentation is available for all the service, leveraging which you can realize what are the different uh, channels to connect and what is the modus operandi of when to use what channel. Again, something, a very simple concept, but most of the people find it very difficult to understand because so many channels exist to do the same task. When to use, what to use, and why to use. I hope you really like the video. See you next time. Thank you.